The world's humanitarian response system is being tested to its limits. That is the warning coming from the United Nations tonight as it launches the largest appeal for aid funding in its history. The UN's Humanitarian Office is asking for a record $51.5 billion for 2023 as multiple crises and the ongoing war in Ukraine keep driving up the need for assistance. The UN's Global Humanitarian Overview says 339 million people will need humanitarian aid next year. That is 4% of the world's population. Now let that sink in. The UN's aid chief says for so many people on the brink, this appeal is a lifeline.
So the next year is going to be the biggest humanitarian program in the world. The gap is because of the needs, not because of the funding. And the needs are going up because we've been smitten by the war in Ukraine, by COVID, by climate. And I fear that 2023 is going to be an acceleration of all those trends. And that's why we say in this report and generally that we hope 2023 will be a year of solidarity, just as 2022 has been a year of suffering.
I want to pull in now Alexandra Saye. She's head of humanitarian policy and advocacy at Save the Children. She joins me tonight from Washington. It's good to have you with us. What we just heard there, not very uplifting. A record number of people in need of aid, a record appeal for aid funding, more than $50 billion. The UN's aid chief, Martin Griffith, calling it a depressing number. Does it depress you as well?
It's awful. I mean, the global humanitarian plan has shown that 2023 is on record to be the bleakest year ever in regards to humanitarian needs. 339 million people, that's 1 in every 23 persons on the planet, need humanitarian assistance simply to survive. And this is due to a convergence of crises, as you mentioned. We have grinding conflict in many parts of the world. We have a deadly climate crisis, which is fueling drought in places like Somalia, flooding in places like Pakistan. We have rising health epidemics. There are places in the Middle East where cholera was previously under control, and now we're seeing outbreaks. And then, of course, you can't underestimate the aftermath of COVID-19, the impact that's had on economic systems and the disruption to economic systems. And all of this has caused record levels of hunger, record levels of displacement, and worsening poverty, driving enormous needs on the ground.
Yeah, and with high inflation, energy costs, food costs, the price tag for providing humanitarian aid is skyrocketing. How is that impacting aid organizations such as yours?
Well, it's impacting aid organizations like Save the Children and others because it's so difficult to keep up with the needs. As you mentioned, there's a massive gap between humanitarian needs and the resources available to respond to those needs. So the system is completely overstretched. We're responding to older crises like Syria, worsening crises like Afghanistan, new crises, Yemen, Ukraine, which has just deteriorated and has really overstretched the system like never before. So we need to respond differently. We need to respond early. We know that responding in anticipation of crisis is what helps people get through it, and it is ultimately what saves lives. We can't let warning signs of food shortages and risk of famine be ignored. We need collective action. We need it to happen now, and we just can't afford to wait. We need assistance to get to frontline aid workers that are on the ground with the acceptance and the access in communities to respond quickly, and we need this to happen immediately.
But, Alexander, I have to correct you. We're already ignoring it. We've been ignoring it. Last year, the UN collected less than half of its target amount. That's a massive funding gap. So clearly, the system is not keeping pace with what these global emergencies actually cost and what they demand. I'm wondering, where is the capacity then for even more to be provided when we can't even keep up with what we need right now?
You're absolutely right. And this is why we're also, in addition to advocating for more assistance, we're also asking for more humanitarian diplomacy to end these crises. That's ultimately what's going to help protect children. That's going to be what helps protect civilians. That's going to be what provides them sustained services. It's not just funding. It's not just assistance. We need governments to muster up the political will to find solutions.
Well,
we
let me
did
ask you-
see, some.
Let me ask if I can about the money. I mean, because we know that the U.S. provides about half of the UN budget, and there will be a lot of talk there about whether or not the Americans are going to provide more. But do you see other sources around the world of money that have not been tapped? I mean, there are countries that have huge sovereign wealth funds. I mean, they would never even miss it if they financed the UN for the next decade. Do you see those countries stepping up to the plate?
I think they need to step up to the plate. There's no other option. If we want to avert further deaths, further crises, they need to step up to the plate. We need to see governments provide their fair share in terms of assistance, and it needs to happen immediately. I mean, there's no other option at the moment. It's all hands on deck, or else we're gonna see an even bleaker 2024.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to look at these numbers already and imagine that things could get even worse. Alexandra, we appreciate your time and your insights and the work that you do. It's valuable. Thank you.
Thank you so much.